I'm interviewing Arno Vater, Arno Vater, of rural Withee. This is February 22nd, 1980, and I'm Louise Oshevsky. Could you tell us when you came to this community?
Well, in the fall of 1900.
How old were you at the time when you came?
5.
Where did you come from?
From Plymouth, Sheboygan County.
What did your dad do at the time when he came?
Well, he put in a sawmill, a small sawmill, and that was the intention of sawing, of course. He had 380s of timber there, very good at that time, and that's what he intended to do and did do. Of course, that's all, because it was all woods. There was no farming land whatsoever, not an acre even.
Lumbering was the thing to do then?
Yes, logging, lumber sawing, lumbering, yes, that'd cover it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you lived in 2 places. Where were the 2 places that you lived?
Well, up here, it's a mile west and a mile north.
Of Withee?
Yeah, of here.
So this would make it about 4 miles
4.5, 5 miles from Withee, yes, northwest. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you lived, when you first came...
About 1908, we moved south of Withee a mile and bought a cleared farm there of 80 acres. And then we lived there, well, the folks lived there continually until I moved up here again to one of these 80s. About...
north of Withee.
Oh gosh, I don't know the date. It's anyway 40 years ago.
To be about in the 40s?
Yes, it must have been then.
It was about 40.
And I built up that place and built the buildings. There was nothing there, whatever. Mm. And lived there ever since, of course.
Now, did you or did your dad saw out the lumber that you used in your home there?
Well, yeah, sure he did. Mm-hmm. They built a pretty fair little house with several rooms in it, and there was upstairs in it. And of course he sawed the lumber, yes. He even sawed the shingles, sawed thin lumber and sawed them short, like that. And they were on there a long time. Hemlock shingles. Hemlock wasn't used for that very much, but there was no cedar here, anywhere near at all, none. I guess you had to go up north quite a ways to find it. And so he used hemlock. They had awful nice hemlock though. Very good timber.
Did most of the people that were around here, were there a lot of loggers around here at the time?
No, not so much. The big loggers were in, like the old lumber company, and a few like that. But otherwise, the smaller people, they kind of tried to get a cleared farm as soon as they could and get going farming. But they worked in the camps and in the mills that were here then.
Mm-hmm. Were there some camps that were right around here that actually had names to them?
Well, no, I wouldn't know them. I never got to them and didn't work there or anything, or my dad didn't either. Mm-hmm. But the old lumber company had, well, let's see, up here about a mile, they had a landing in here where they brought all the logs up and load them on cars and haul them in the own, Mm-hmm. It's what they call a landing. Mm-hmm. They haul them in there, well, either with horses or oxen, or whatever, gather them up there and then load them on cars, railroad cars.
Now, were there places where they floated the logs down the river?
Oh, yes. They used the river, but where they landed them, I don't know. I think up north here, where they used to call the Helms place, I think they must have started there with some of them, and forwarded them down the river all the way, till across. My dad seen them going in the river, and they'd bump together, and they'd make little sounds, when they'd bump together the logs, so they were going. But I never seen them myself, no. But that's what took the pine timber out of here, is the rivers. Because, with the power they had then, they couldn't haul too far. They'd haul into the river then, and they'd dump them, they'd dump them on the ice or on the bank and roll them in afterward.
So that's mostly how they were moved. Did the railroad move very many of them?
Well, all the lumber that Owen saw, they moved by railroad, yes.
How many railroad tracks were in Withee at that time?
They went in every direction almost. They went south way into the Butler settlement through there, and they went up north there clear as far as Hannibal, Ladysmith, I guess, almost. And, and they went west too. They had landing where bears live in there on the railroad. Of course, that was on the Sioux line.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this was on the Sioux line too eventually when this railroad was put in, you know, afterward. Then they hauled on there.
Now, did they put in the second railroad that runs to St. Paul? Was that the first one, or was that the second one that was
That's
put
the first railroad. That was in there about 1885. But you know, this is what they used to call a cutoff here. It went from Spencer to Superior and cut off the corners like over at Abbotsford and that, and went clear through about as straight a line as they could make. But it was supposed to be an ore haul, but they never hauled much ore. I don't know, I guess the boats took over.
The St. Paul line that runs about, the one that's about 2 miles north of Withee we're talking about.
The Sioux line here, this one here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, goes through,
It's about
right
2 miles
through,
north.
through below there.
Did this have a lot of passenger service on it? Did people travel by railroad very much?
No, they didn't have, they had some limited trains, one each way every day, first from Chicago to Superior, but otherwise they had what they call a scoot. That was a mixed train, you know. People could ride on that for a little ways if they wanted to. It is, you know, on freight cars and a couple coaches. It went about every day, I guess, up in here somewhere. I don't know how far it went.
Did some of the first settlers that came up to look at land, did they maybe take the railroads up from Chicago with a land
yes,
agent?
everything was brought in by railroad, yes. Everybody traveled by railroad to the towns, of course, and there was nothing else. And then they'd get out the best they could. Of course, these land agents, they'd get livery teams to go out, you know, take care of their business. But, most of the other people, they had a horse or two, and then they'd drive, of course.
Did a land agent bring your dad up here to begin with?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was from Plymouth, or did
They must have canvassed
someplace
that country down there, yeah.
When your dad arrived here, what nationality families were in this area by that time?
Just simply everything.
They were
Yes. Of course,
Danes and the
Withee
French
was
were-
Dane, you know. But the surrounding country was just everything. That's why our German wasn't kept up, you know. They never mentioned it again after he came here, because there's no one else, you know. Yeah, there was just everything, as far as nationality is concerned.
Why did some of the families stay? It was such a difficult living. Why did they stay here?
They couldn't get out. That's all. Some of them, of course. And they got the poor land. It didn't cost them hardly anything, I suppose. And they had to make the best of it. That's all. Now, some people, I know, across the corner from me, a fellow by Warren Hughes lived there. He lived a year or two and built some buildings. He pulled out and went in the automobile business in Milwaukee. Well, he evidently was able to get out.
One of the lucky ones.
Yes.
What did timberland sell for at that time?
By the acre?
By the acre.
12 and a half an acre.
And that was good standing. Was that pine or was that
No, the
hardwood?
pine was taken out. There was a little possibly scattered around, but all the rest of the timber was there. What they called a hardwood. It wasn't really hardwood either. Hemlock and basswood and stuff, you know. But they termed that hardwood.
Now, see, the lumber, the sawmill that your father had and that you had, what did you run it with?
Oh,
What kind of power?
a steam engine, of course, yeah. They had several engines. They had a little traction engine that they fooled them into, and it wasn't big enough, and they had to get a bigger one. And after a while, they bought still a different one and sold it again, and well, they sold them all eventually. But yeah, steam was the power, of course. That's all you had.
Who were the two main sawmills that were in this area at the time?
Well, the old lumber company, and there was in other town like Thorpe, and so they all had good-sized mills.
Did no?
I don't know what they called that one up to Clark. They had a sawmill at the Maplehurst too, and at Clark, but it wasn't as big as Owen's.
Owen, as you mentioned, was one of the big sawmills. Now they had. Can you tell us a little bit about how they were set up, like their company houses and stores and things like this?
Oh yes, they built houses for their workmen and rented them to them, and they had a store, a boarding house, and well, that's all they had then, I guess. Well, for instance, single men, so they'd board at the boarding house, and people could, their workmen would buy things at the store, and of course we charged up to them. I suppose they were in a hole most of the time. But they had quite a store there one time, about a better stocked store than they had otherwise in around the towns, I think.
In comparison to where our stores are today, about where would that store have been on Main Street?
It's just exactly where the Shooter's Supply is now.
The Badger Shooter?
That's the building, exactly.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And the next building to it was the boarding house. I guess they tore that down, I believe. And then beyond that was the Owen residence, the Sarriette, you know, and also their barn where they kept their horses, and the teamsters, such like he lived there. Of course there was, I don't know whether they had butlers or not, but it was a kind of in a way it was a butler. He'd take care of their driving needs, you know, and all that. But whether they had a butler in the house, I don't know. I never heard. They maybe did have servants of some kind.
Did they have nice horses?
Oh yes, they had about 4 nice driving horses. They'd put a couple of them on a buggy with about 3 seats on it, and they'd go past our place down there and back again. And, well, the women would go where they pleased, you know. The driver would take them.
Now all of this actually is where the Owen Water Tower is now.
Just about, yeah. That's where the barns were, on that hill there. From the Shooter Supply up the hill. Well, that was a barn and a yard for the horses and so. I guess that's about all it was on that side. And the opposite side was the lumber yard, of course. All that Catholic Hill there. And that was all lumber yard. Oh, they must have had about 40 acres of lumber yard there. All filled with lumber piles.
It's hard to imagine that now. That
yes.
Now the Owen Mill Pond was a man-made pond too,
yes,
wasn't it?
It is.
Do you know about when that was made?
Well, it was there when we came here because they were using it, you know. Yes, they dammed it up so they'd get water, so they float the logs into the mill, and also for water supply for the boilers, of course.
Now the city almost got its name from that too, didn't it? When the train went through, they call it, was it called Owen's Mill?
Yes, they called up Owen's Mill at one time. And I'm pretty sure that if they didn't have a passenger, they wouldn't even stop. I rode through there many times. We used to come up here to Withee, you know, and that was the next town. Well, Withee really was bigger than they were then. At least they were listed on the railroad as a station.
That's when they were doing, when the Withees were doing a lot of the lumbering here then, weren't they?
You mean by the name of Withee?
Mm-hmm.
No, not so much. They had 3 big farms that they cleared up. But he had a sawmill too. I think at Longwood one time. But they had 3 farms. You know, the county farm and the others, you know them.
But you tell me though.
Mm-hmm.
Near Longwood, you said there was one too?
Yes, a big one. Well, they were all big. And they were cleared too then at that time already.
Now one of the, out what we consider the county hospital right now, about how many acres did that actually run out there?
1,000 acres. And they do yet.
What type of crops did they raise?
Well, they had a dairy farm. They raised everything that they needed, for it. And do yet.
They raised hay and corn and
sure.
certain kinds of grains?
No, just a common grain that people used. Or,
oats or
likely.
not barley or wheat or
well,
something.
not too much. There wasn't much call for barley, Mostly oats. And well, in the early days, when they first came up here, they used to raise some wheat when they had cleared land, some of them, and it grew awful good for a few years, and after a while it played out, didn't do anything anymore.
Is that what probably most of the farmers around here raised?
Well, they raised a little of everything, I suppose.
When you first started farming on your farm there, how did it progress from the horse era until you got your first tractor?
Oh, you mean at what time?
About how long did it take you before you had your first tractor?
Oh,
felt
I don't
really
know.
up in the world.
Maybe 10 years or so. When you say farming, that was the farm south of Withee, though. There was nothing up here, Didn't even have any cleared land.
No, you didn't farm up here at all?
No.
Now the farm south of Withee that we're talking about is where the mile south of Withee would be where the Skohetka farm is now.
Yes.
So that the tape knows what we're talking about. So you actually just farmed down there. Up here you didn't farm at all?
No.
Didn't have cows?
They tried to put in an orchard. They cleared a piece on the hill there, and they thought they could start an orchard. And that didn't materialize. And I suppose the soil wasn't right or something. And I suppose that new soil, no doubt, just needed lime and all kinds of stuff. And I know they dug pretty big holes, or blasted them, I don't know which, to set those trees in. Yet it didn't do no good.
Yeah, in this area it probably was blessed then.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that you didn't do that much farming up here, but now you had you had a threshing business up here.
Had
didn't
what?
You had a threshing machine business?
That
Threshing?
was south of Withee when
That
I
was
lived
south
there.
too.
I had that, yes.
And that was about in what year?
Oh, I should know too.
About 1924? in there?
I suppose something like that. It's been quite a while now.
What did your first machine cost you?
$1,100 for the separator. It was brand new. And it had an engine already to put onto it,
You said you were telling me about 1 year, it was such a dry summer or dry fall, and you were in the threshing business. And you threshed for how many days in a row?
30 days without stopping.
You really had good weather then.
Oh, it was. That was exceptional.
How far of an area did you thresh?
Well, I went from Withee to, where 73 crosses the Popple down below there. And between the two rivers, the Popple and Black, almost all of that.
What did the people do with their grain at that time?
Oh, they fed it to their cattle.
Did they, in the field, was it put in shocks or?
Oh, yes.
Was shocks?
At first, they used to stack some, but they soon just let it sit in shocks,
To dry out?
Yeah. And
how long did it take for you to pay for your machine?
Oh, I paid for that machine the first year.
Working 30 days in a row.
Yeah, that was pretty good,
The Owen Estates had quite a bit of grain there also.
Who?
The Owen Estates?
Oh, yes. I thrashed that job several times. There was around 3,000 bushel.
3,000. What did they do with most of that?
Horse feed in the camps. And here at the mill, That all went for horse feed. Those horses, they took a lot of feed, of course. There's a lot of horses they had. They must have had maybe 100 altogether in the camps and here at the mill. It took quite a few teams at the mill to keep that going. There's no mechanical power then. And Well, took horses, and all of them.
If they worked, they had to eat then too.
Oh, sure.
Keep them up.
And they, well, they kept them in good shape. The horses looked good.
Now, when you lived south of Withee, you lived across from the Krieger farm.
Yes.
There was an incident that happened there back in the, well, why don't you tell us about that particular incident that happened about the end of World War I?
Well, that's really a pretty big story by itself. But I can tell you the cause of it and a few things. Well, of course, everybody was supposed to register, you know, under certain ages. And Frank, he was the oldest one. He came into one of the last registrations. And Leslie, well, the others too. They didn't catch them right away, you know. They're a little over age. They're getting there. And Leslie and Frank just simply didn't register. He said, we don't have to. They can't tell us to do that. We're our own boss. And that's what started it. Well, naturally, the authorities will get after that, you know. And then, of course, this thing started. Where the irony of all it was, the war was so far along, and our age was pretty far along, it was over before they got registered, even. But they were such people that figured our land is ours. We can do what we please, and we can keep anybody off we want to, and we're our own boss. And that don't work, you know.
If a neighbor's stray cow got on the land, what did they do?
If what?
If a neighbor's stray cow got on the land,
oh,
what
they'd
did
lock
they
them
do?
up and make you pay for them or something.
To get them back.
Yeah.
Now, was there some shooting that went on?
What?
Was there some shooting that went on?
Oh, yes, you bet. People, well, they had a war hysteria, you know. They all went to Kriegers and they're going to fight, you know. Well, the civilians had no business going there at all for that purpose. You got to be deputized before you do a thing like that, you know. And then you're under orders, of course, same as the Army. But all the people ran there with their damn guns, you know, and stuff, and shot into the house. Oh, they shot up the house pretty much, full of bullet holes all over, you know. I think it is yet, even. From both sides. They came from the south and they came from the north, about as far as our place. That was kind of over the hill there. They were a little protected. They didn't go much closer than that. Especially the officers. They didn't show themselves. They knew that they'd let them have it if they got a chance. But as far as they were concerned against the people, they didn't have anything against them. They wasn't trying to shoot the people around here. Unless it happened that way, they couldn't do it different, possibly. Like from the east, as one fellow crawled up towards the buildings, you know, with a rifle in his hand. Well, what did he expect? They shot him up some. They didn't kill him, but they shot him up. But people ought to know better than that. That's a job, well, for the officers, and if they need reinforcements, they can get them to do the job. But here, everybody ran down there. Oh, dear.
Were they supposed to have been German?
The what?
Were they supposed to have been German?
They were, but I never heard a word of German around there. They, you couldn't say they were pro-German, no. They'd been here so long already that you couldn't call them that. And they made no movement that whatever in that direction. You know, some of these old Germans, they keep up their language and they talk quite a bit, you know, but they didn't.
Now, were they ever sent to prison for shooting that they did?
Yes, they were. The two of them, they spent about 15 years, I think it was, something like that, for a man that was shot down here in the road in front of our place. So they blamed them for it, and I don't think they ever done it, because he was standing behind a car when he got hit. They couldn't see him even. But that's what they called him on. And the mother was in prison a while too, but not too long.
The mother, you say?
Yes.
Was that for the shooting too?
Well, in connection with it, yeah, I suppose it all come under the same heading, no doubt.
Did they ever do anything to the people that took it upon themselves to go shoot down there? Anybody? None of them?
When it kind of went over, they all went home. I guess that's all there was to it.
Other than this incident, the Kriegers had one of the first threshing machines in the country.
Yes, they did.
What was that powered with?
What?
What was that powered with?
That's a big steam engine, traction engine. I think they were, because when we came there, they had it at least, and I have an idea they were on the ground floor with it, no doubt. Because they'd lived there quite a while then already. And they had to, well, pretty well all the land cleared and that. Of course, our 80 across the road was cleared too. You know, that settled a little sooner than it was up this way.
Why do you suppose that people settled in that area? It was a little closer to town probably, but settled there quicker than up in the woods here.
I really don't know. But it kind of drifted up from Neilsville. They kept settling up, and it more or less settled all the way there. And, well, being close to town, and I suppose.
Did the Kriegers have something else they used to make money with?
Well, they farmed, but they didn't farm very good.
Did they have a sawmill too?
Oh, yes.
Where was that located on their farm?
Well, right back of the buildings, about 15, 20 rods down in the land there.
Back, actually, toward the woods there, then?
What?
Toward the woods behind their house, then?
No, that was pretty well cleared. They had other outlying land, a couple 80s too. And, well, they'd get sawing, I suppose, from the farmers, you know.
Now, you were going back now a little bit to the schools in this area. Where did you attend school?
The white school over here in the corner.
Now, was that school built already when you came?
No. My dad sawed the lumber for it. And it wasn't there. There was nothing but woods. They cleared an acre. I got a picture of it. I should have had it over here if I'd known you'd want it. Of the schoolhouse, and they built a little woodshed, and they had school in that for a year. And they built the big one. It's there now, but it's been remodeled a lot, you know. But, yeah, I got a report card from 1902.
Who was
and
the teacher?
I think that was probably their first official school.
Oh.
No doubt.
Who was the teacher? Do you remember?
Catherine Kellnan.
Kellnan.
Well, of course, that wouldn't mean anything anymore.
No, well,
yeah.
Someplace in history, she must be listed someplace with a teaching certificate. How did that school kind of progress as it went along?
Oh, they got so they had a big school. You know, the people generally had quite a few children that moved in here, and they had 25 or 30 pupils in the school. I know they. I got a picture of that in front of the schoolhouse too. A whole bunch of them. Oh, gee whiz. And then afterwards, after we moved away, it petered out. It seemed the younger people came in here and didn't have so many children, and it got pretty small.
Now, what were some of the things that you did in Little Country school?
You mean what, in the line of studies?
Studies and activities that they did?
Well, studies covered everything, you know, those same as everybody else did at that time. And they learned to read and write, too. I thought it was awful funny late years now that they say some of these people can't read or write. Isn't it awful?
It's, you can hardly believe it, that it's possible to go through school that far and not
be exposed and still not learn anything. I can't understand it. And all the high-priced schools we furnish for them.
I think maybe they aren't doing
that teacher
a good
got
job of listening either,
$30 a month.
Did she have to fire the furnace also?
Yes, but...
And be the janitor?
Well, to an extent. About once a month they cleaned the schoolhouse for her.
Whether needed
but
or
the
not.
sweeping and all that, well, some of the kids would help do it, you know, and so forth.
Did you have Christmas plays and
Oh, yes.
parties?
Oh, that was annual. Yeah, we used to have some pretty good programs. We had some good speakers and all that. In fact, the teachers said that I should be a public speaker. Can you imagine? Well, you know, lots of these kids, you couldn't hear them, you know. And I would speak up when they liked that. You know, the little kids get so scared they couldn't hardly talk, you know.
Now, I suppose you carried your lunch to school?
Oh, sure.
Did they ever have a hot lunch when you went to school?
Oh my, no. They had what they brought from school, and there was some people over west there after a while. The kids got pretty smart, and they suggested to divide the lunches because they didn't have very much, see. And they did for a little while, between themselves, the kids, you know, but they put a stop to that. They'd have bread with lard on it, you know, and that's all.
You could always trade with, you know, someone if you had something that you didn't like.
Yeah.
They had something that they didn't like either. Did you have school picnics?
Oh, yes. Oh, at the end of the school, always a picnic, you bet.
Oh, was this usually a family type picnic?
Pardon?
Was this a family type picnic? Where the
Well,
parents
yeah,
came
the
to
families would all come, you know, and they'd bring a dinner, of course. And, well, I mostly remember the picnic down the other school, down south of Withee, that we used to have, but they had them here too, of course.
What was the name of the school south?
That's the Moody School. It's gone now. But that was an old school, older than this one yet.
In the white school.
As I say, that part of the country was settled sooner than this way. And is it drinking water?
Yes.
Well, that'll come on this essay that I'm going to give you about where the roads went and how far. The road further than 2 miles, that is about here then, I guess. No, on Hanson's Corner, that's 2 miles. That was the end of the road here, and the other road went Frenchtown to that big Miller farm there, and that was the end of it. And we had to go through a logging road over the rest of the way, a mile or so, through the woods, for at least a year or two.
So the roads got pretty bad in the wintertime then?
Well, no, they were good in the winter, you know.
Or if the
In
logging...
the summers when they got so rough and so muddy. And it rained a lot for part of the year, it seemed, and awful muddy and wet.
Do you
Of course,
remember...
under the trees and woods like that, it stayed wet longer, you know.
Didn't dry out. Do you remember any particular years when the weather was exceptionally good or exceptionally bad, dry or wet?
Oh, no, it got awful cold, but you didn't notice it too much because there was no wind in the woods, you know. Practically no wind, you didn't feel it, and you could hear it up above, but now the wind makes it so miserable. But it was awful cold. Oh, to stay cold. My dad used to say to go 100 days without thawing.
That sounds like most of our winters now.
deep snow they had. But of course with horses, you got that worked down. They had them, the roads were real nice. Those sleigh roads, you know, and gee, they were good. In the night like this, the horses trot along on that road right along.
Did you have, was it a 1-horse or 2-horse buggy?
Well,
Or did you have a sleigh? What? Did you
sleigh,
have
we had a cutter, and of course we had a bobsleigh, a heavy sleigh. We had 2 horses. But the cutter, of course, you'd use with 1 horse when you went to town or something.
Where did you get your horses from?
I brought them along. Shipped up a carload, what they call an emigrant car. Everything in it, you know. Horses and a cow and the furniture and everything.
Did you have any sheep in it?
Not at that time. After a while we had some.
How many sheep did you raise at one time?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I don't think very many here. We had some down below there. Must have had at times about 100, I guess.
It's quite a good sized flock.
And well, I had some after I lived here myself. I had some, and the dogs got so rough on them that I couldn't keep them. But otherwise, I would like to have had them. And down there, we used to have wolves. We'd hear them howl, you know. You ever hear wolves howl?
I
in the
don't
woods.
believe so.
Oh, it's kind of an eerie sound, you know. But I was going to say with the sheep, they had lambs, of course, and those wolves, they'd grab a lamb, and the sheep would hardly know it, you know. They wouldn't disturb them at all. Or a dog, you know, they mess everything up. But they'd maybe get a lamb once a week, and that's all there was to it. There was no disturbance. Sheep didn't get scared, they didn't get hurt and anything. And then we got some wolf hunters from Greenwood one time, and they went through the country. They got them, the one or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had, well, I suppose then it was what they call flu now. I was confined to the house, and they carried that wolf into the bedroom and showed it to me.
Must have been pretty good sized.
Oh yeah, it was a full-grown wolf, and it must have been the one that was doing the damage there.
Mm-hmm.
But well, and then there was quite a few roads like south of Withee there, and they could patrol those roads and go through the wood and drive them out and so on. They understood that business. They made a business of doing that. You know, the $20 bounty on them then.
Oh, that was.
And they got him.
Now, when you raised sheep, did your mother make wool quilts then?
Yes, we had wool bats made out of some of the wool that wasn't saleable. That's what you used for that. If a sheep died or something, you'd either shear them, or after a little bit you could pull the wool right off them, you know. Send it into the Chipaway had a carding mill. They'd card that into a bat, you know, about that thick. Real loose. You've seen them, of course. I've got them yet. That's the only quilts I've got, in fact. But there's nothing like it, you know. It's light and nice. And we, used to have all them, I guess. Then there's sometimes some wool that, it's a poor grade of stuff. If a sheep is, well, you know what it is. If they're poor and thin, the wool is no good either. So any of that wasn't saleable, we'd make bats out of it.
Where did you ship the wool to sell it?
Well, in late years, there was a cooperative in the country that took it. But otherwise, you'd send it to some commission house or something.
Were you able to sell some to people just around here that wanted to make wool bats?
No, they didn't know what that was. And to buy it would be pretty expensive, you know.
What did people use for blankets then, if they didn't use wool?
Oh, you could buy them cotton bats to put into it, you know. And regular blankets, I guess, too, as far as that goes, you know.
Well, they just didn't know quality when they saw it.
Pardon?
They didn't know quality when they saw it.
Oh, no. No comparison.
No.
No.
Now, they used horses. Oh, go ahead.
I bet you've had them, haven't you?
That's what we sleep under.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that isn't good about them, after a while they get kind of soiled and so forth on, and it's a job to make them over. You've got to take the covers off, really. And the proper thing to do is to send the mill and have them work it over again.
Right. That puts
and then tie it in again, then you're all right. But otherwise, you can't do nothing with them. You know, one time, you always got to wash wool before you process it. And I folks put it in the washing machine, you know. And that made a bunch of knots you never seen like in your life. I've never done that again, and let the processor do it.
Let the wool mill card it great and shred it. And
but that fixed that, you know, that wrinkled and tied it all up. Oh, gee whiz. It was worthless.
Yeah, then... Yeah. Now, you used horses for farming mostly.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, what they did, sure.
Did some use oxen around here?
Yes, but that is a little before our time. There's one fellow over west here, he lived up north here too afterward. He had a team, but otherwise there was none.
Can oxen work straight through, or do they have to have a break, rest time?
You mean in the daytime? Yes, they got to give them an hour extra rest to chew their cud. They, my uncle told me that, I wouldn't know, but they won't do it when they're working. And you know, those animals, they got to do that, of course, sometime during the day. Otherwise, wild nights, of course, they do a good deal of it, but they'd have to have a rest at noon for that too, extra, that a horse wouldn't need.
Now, going right along with this power, this is 1980 right now, and there are still some steam engine shows around the country. Could you tell us a little bit about some that you attend and how they go about rating the horsepower of the steam engines?
Well, that's determined by lifting a certain amount of weight, 1 foot high, you might say, in a limited time. And that's termed the horsepower, however it's prorated out. But now, well, we don't do it anymore, but we used to have testing fans. You put them on, and there was a dial on them to tell how many horsepower they were developing. A great big fan, not big and not wide, you know, take a lot of power. And we have them yet, but we just run them for the fun of it. But yeah, the only steam engine in existence is those that people have, well, for the fun of it or for to go to shows with. That's all. But there's quite a lot of them in the country yet, too.
Where are some of the shows, the steam engine shows around here?
Well, Eau Claire, and there's a lot of them out west, and we have one in Edgar, and there's some in the southern part of the state, too, several of them. Quite a few of them. Up through here, there wasn't many at all. Of course, the land wasn't populated so much, they didn't have as many, I suppose.
Now, you are still involved actually in community activities here, and now you're one of the senior citizens. What kind of social activities are you involved in here?
Well, not much. It's we're supposed to have entertainment at our meetings, you know. But it's pretty hard to get something. We've had about all the speakers that you can pick up, you know, and Social Security men and so forth. But we're supposed to furnish something for amusement, of course. And also at the nutrition center.
What is the nutritional center? What do they do there?
Well, that's where they have the dinners, you know, the senior citizens.
Are they free, or do they have to pay for them?
No, they make a donation, that's all. But you could also eat free if you made it a point to do so. But of course, if that is practiced too much, I suppose the thing would play out after a while. Of course, the federal government, they back it now, you know. Anyway, they don't get money enough out of that to pay for it.
Anyone that's a senior citizen can go there to eat served 5 days a week?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. 60 or 65, I don't know which over. Mm-hmm. Or if somebody is disabled or so, then they can go there too.
They have a variety of food, and it's a nice...
Yes, pretty well. I don't fancy it too much. You know, it's made at the county hospital, brought over here, and then it cools off quite a bit, although they have them ovens, you know, they have that keep stuff hot pretty well. Then they preheat it again on the Bunsen burner, and I don't think that does the food any good.
Yeah, some things don't heat that well.
Yes, in general, it's a good food, yes. I wouldn't say it wasn't, but it isn't very tasty, you know.
It's not like
one person said, it isn't tasty. And I think that's the cause, because they got a woman there cooking, and I'm sure she's a good one. But the food isn't too good, because I think that's the reason, don't you?
Gee, I don't know what...
Well, it was kind of partly cools off and preheated again in about an hour's time or so.
If things are warmed up too much, then...
Yeah, it doesn't any good.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like when it was
and
fresh meat.
I think the meat toughens up, won't it? I don't know, the meat is tough, whether they have a poor grade of beef, I don't know, but it is. And maybe that's the reason. It's tasty enough, and if anything, they overcook it. You know, that's possible too.
Yeah.
But
The preheating might be the thing that...
now, about once a week they have liver and bacon. Well, the bacon is all right, but that liver...
time in this area.
Well, worked in the camps and cut logs and sawed them, or I mean hauled them to town, sold them. Everybody had a big log and sleigh and a team, of course, and then they could haul that stuff to town. That is, and wood. Of course, whatever fuel they needed, they could furnish some wood, and nice hard maple wood. They didn't use all the old elm like we do now.
How about the ice and storing ice? How did they go about doing this?
Well, they had to saw it out, and they had sleighs with platforms on them that they'd load it on and haul it to the ice house and elevate it up something like a hay, pull hay up into a barn, the big ice houses. Oh, they had the big ones on the east side of the lake there, the pond. And they, well, as I say that, I suppose her Grimes hauled it all over town then. No doubt.
How did they go about cutting the ice out of the river?
Well, you had to start by hand, take a saw and saw it out till you got a channel. And then they done it with horsepower, with that kind of like a garden cultivator, like had teeth on the bottom that cut a crease out. And then the balance what was left, maybe so much they split it off, you know. Cut it, break right through. Then you had to watch out not to get the horses in the pond. or the men.
Right, once it got...
On Elkhart Lake, they had a fence that open water, put a wire around it. You know, and that was plumb open there. Gee, that'd be awful. People would run into it, you know.
If you weren't expecting it.
I guess, well, once in a while a man would slip into it, and I guess he got cooled off good.
Did you mention how the ice was stored in the ice house?
Well, it's covered with about 6-8 inches of sawdust, the sides and top. And then you dug in there, and when you got the ice out you wanted, you covered it over again, and then it stayed there. Real good shape.
Now, was the mill pond frozen during the winter time?
Oh, yes, except where they push the logs into the mill. It is open there. The exhaust from the steam engine kept it open. They float them in there. That's what we call a live chain. Comes out of the water and goes up in the mill. They push them in there and then just pull them up, you know. Yeah, that kept a couple of men busy pushing logs into that chain. You bet. And they, well, they had platforms across, planks, you know. Oh, maybe 2 foot wide. Once in a while a fellow would get thrown into there too, but get caught or something. But they worked in that open water all the time, or on it. And that whole pond was covered with logs during the winter. They got all covered over in a lot of the land around the edge yet. What they dumped there in the winter, they hauled them in. They couldn't saw as fast as they brought them in. Couldn't begin to. They sawed all summer, you know, steady. Mm-hmm. And then they had a railroad track along that, what they call a hot pond, that open, you know. And they pull their cars up there and dump logs right into that water, and float them over and push them in the mill. That wasn't good after that then.
Yeah.
They made a living in a way.
But still, it's surprising, you know, after a bad experience like that, you'd think they'd say, come back and dispose of it and walk away from it, go someplace else.
Yeah. Well, they still had that idea, that's our land here. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was their homestead,
Oh,
so
sure.
to speak.
Well, that's why they had it left, you know, they couldn't take it away from them.
Yeah. But still,
Oh, that time they had, I was at the trial, and they had it in Neilsville for several days, you know.
yes.
Boy, they hired the best damn lawyer there was in the state. I'll betcha. A fellow named John Reynolds, he had a good reputation. And when you'd hear his plea, you'd think sure they'd get off. But they didn't.
That was a hard time to defend something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, he had nothing to go on.
Yeah. He could, Jesus Christ himself could have been there and got, been found guilty too at that time with the war.
Well, the lawyer will take a case and they know it's no good.
Yeah.
We still,
No doubt that cost them plenty.
Oh, yes.
But they had 80 acres of land out west there, and they had 80 right next to ours on the south, and only had 80 up here too. You know, Carl Jensen got 140 off of that.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So that all went for
Expense.
expense, yeah.
Yeah.
As I say, they hired one of the best lawyers you get hold of. He had a pretty good reputation that time.
What was their attitude like when they came back, the boys?
Well, nothing it seemed.
Not too bad, huh? They
No.
weren't bitter or sour or...
People went there and had logs sawed and stuff, you know. Nothing to it.
Must have been enough time to make some people forget. Or those that thought it was
Well,
wrong to start with.
They got over that hysteria, you know, after a bit. Same they did, they had it all in for all the Germans, you know. Well, that was hysteria too. They called my dad pro-German. Well, he was born in this country, and his father came over as a baby, so they're pretty well established here.
That didn't make any
And, you know, they want them all to buy Liberty bonds. And they tackled my dad, which says, I ain't got the money. Oh, Tough says, we'll lend you the money for it. The heck with that noise.
Get 2% on a bond and pay 6% for the loan,
That'd be about it, yeah. Yeah, we'll lend you the money. Oh, gee whiz. Well, nobody had any loose money laying around.
Yeah, they were anti-German at that time, that's true.
Oh, yeah, goodness sake. Anything looked like, if you had a German name even, that is a bad rig.
That's all it took.
Yeah. Now, I've often thought of it. We had sometimes, we think anyway, some communists through the country here. If I say you're a communist to somebody, you got a job to unload that, haven't you? You're darn right. You can't get rid of it hardly.
Because that's what people want to believe. Just like the newspaper men. They put in the paper what the people want to read.
Oh, sure.
They doctor it up so it makes good reading. And just like Mother tells a story in Poland, this Polish person went up and hit a Jew. Just hit him. The Jew said, you know, what for? What'd you do that for? You guys killed Jesus Christ.
The what?
You guys crucified Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he got hit. Not, you know, that's about as much sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why I always said it. That was a bad deal all around. My dad had an old shotgun, I guess it was. Boy, them officers grabbed onto that and took it away in a hurry. Confiscated it, you know. Oh, yeah.
Get it back?
Yeah, I guess they eventually did.
After,
But, oh, yeah. If he'd say anything, they'd try to tell him to shut up in a hurry. Oh, yeah. In other words, you had to be pretty careful what you said.
yeah.
Yeah. Bill Tufts used to make believe he was such a big man, you know. Shucks, I don't think he was much at all. You didn't know him, of course. No. He used to run the bank. He was the head of it, I guess. Must have been.
Yeah, he was cashier.
I guess so. Something like that.
I think Natalie worked for him.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
WC, was it?
Yeah,
WC?
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would he give farmers loans very easily?
For what?
Would he give farmers loans very easily?
Well, they did fairly easy during that time. That's why they got in bad. A little too easy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole paper was good for nothing. And people would buy, well, pardon me, they buy yet over their heads. Well, if they can't make it, come and take it. Well, they don't want that stuff. So what the heck are you going to do with it? So that's what done it.
Yeah. I guess there was a time when the bank was very selective. Only some people, certain people could get money.
Oh,
You know, this is what
it might be.
not because it was everybody that needed it, but just because they weren't the right kind of people, I guess.
My dad had to borrow money a little bit once in a while when they came up here, and I know on the abstract there's one item, he borrowed $400 from the bank. Gee, and that's on there, I'll tell you.
I'll be darned.
But,
I'll be darned. They must have taken some kind of a lien against the property.
I don't know
then,
what they done.
Had to, for it to appear on the abstract.
Yeah. Well, the bank seemed to weather the time through there pretty good.
Yeah, they did.
After a while is when they went.
Yeah. They closed because they had to close by government law, not because of conditions.
Oh,
That's right. It was
that's it, huh?
that moratorium that was declared, all banks closed.
Oh,
Whether
yeah.
they conditions forced them to or not, it made no difference.
Well, I think people got so they bought quite a lot of stuff, and probably they were a little bit easier with them.
Yeah.
And
I know Mother and Dad lost some money in Chicago. See, that was they were in Chicago when when the Depression hit.
Well, I did too, a little. I know that's the time I moved. Well, that's the date I moved up here. I moved that house, you know.
Yeah.
And we had it off the foundation, partly loaded. I had a mover from Chippewa doing it. I had done a lot of it already. And Dad came home and says, "Bank's closed." Well, I said to that mover, "There's your money. I don't know what the heck going to get any more." And the boy started crying. He said, "We got other money, we got other money." And Dad says, "I started to move that house, and I'm going to move it." And he did. Never said boo about nothing. And I paid him off little by little afterward. But they had that tied up, you know.
Yeah.
I had money there for it.
Yeah. But, okay. But you got that money eventually.
Not all of it.
Just so much on a
Percentage, yeah. I don't know what it was anymore. Yeah. And old Joe Brandt, he built my wall. He was a mason, you know. And I gave him a check for it. And he held that check a couple of months. And then when that bank closed, he started to holler. Oh, the old man got loud. I said, "When the hell did you cash it?" It's just a piece of paper then yet.
Yeah.
Well, I had to repay that. Damn right. But they should have sent that check in and they had the money.
Yeah.
You know, the farmers done that some too. When these cheese prices went haywire, they'd have half a dozen milk checks on hand. Well, isn't that foolish?
Maybe. Help yourself. You want to run the pump for him, Case, Justin?
What?
Well, there wasn't nothing you could do for them. No. Their own hard luck, that's all.
Yeah. And now the people even don't trust the government checks. The day they get it, they bring them in.
Bring them in, huh? Yeah, believe it.
Because they're afraid the government's going to go bankrupt before they get their cash. I don't say I blame them either, the way things are going.
Yes, it is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it really is. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, there's lots of people that are getting, well, Social Security, for instance. They need that doggone money right now.
True.
Bet your life.
Yeah, you take.
I know you hear them down there at the center, you know.
I'll bet.
When my check comes, when my
Yeah.
check comes.
Yeah.
And you'll get it exactly when he's coming. You know.
Talked to a guy today that makes good money. He makes over $20,000. But he has the kind of job that sometimes he gets laid off.
Mm-hmm. Then he's in hard shape, huh?
Yeah, he gets his unemployment. He was
Yeah.
He was really bitter because they consider that taxable income.
Oh, they do?
If you make so much.
Yeah. That's how that works. Tuesday, how you got it to stand upright and turn it around here. Stand up.
Oh. Well,
It'd be kind of interesting just to get a copy of it to
Would
put
it-
along with this.
pardon?
This would be interesting to get a copy of it.
I have
put
another
it
one
along.
somewhere if I can find it.
We can run one off,
Uh,
Xerox one off.
well, you want to read that or what?
Why don't I, if you want to read it in here or just kind of tell
Well,
about
would
what's
it fit
going on?
in to the rest of it?
I'll fit it in where it goes.
Oh.
Because I'll put this on a different tape.
Oh, I see.
And I'll just
Oh, you
fit it
can
in.
run it onto a different one?
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
because I don't have the tape.
Well,
at
otherwise
home
you can
that I
do
was
like the
going-
movies, snip them off.
Right, yeah. I just insert it in.
Now this, let's see. Oh, yes. Right there is me, the little guy between there. And next to me is Johnny Heminger.
Now, Johnny, is Mrs. Heminger, is that her son, or, no, it'd be her husband? The one that was around here? Mother's Homemakers?
I don't know. Is that
What is that?
Johnny was? Who's Johnny?
Johnny Heminger used to live, east of schoolhouse, half a mile north. up
Down
in-
at the end there.
end of the road.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. They started that place, of course.
Yeah.
But it's been owned by several others
Yeah.
since. I don't know who's on it now.
No, there was a
The bunch
building.
of Vanderwegens on there. Did you know any of the Vanderwegens? Didn't they? They had a whole bunch of kids in it. Well, that one and that one, I guess. That's the oldest Heminger boy. That's a Gerke boy, Ed Gerke. Was a big Delmater. He was bigger than a t-shirt.
Gerke? Is that, or what, which one is
Delmater.
it?
Delmater.
Delmater. Who was your teacher then?
What?
Who was your teacher?
Oh, it tells in that
Oh, is this
in
one?
here. Let's see. They built that schoolhouse for $1,000. That's the big one, this one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get my fixed too.
Now this part wasn't on there, was it? This back part?
That's that
that
woodshed.
torn off?
That's
Oh, that's
that,
the woodshed.
that part there.
It's
That-
not really attached. It just looks like it is on the picture.
It was saying a separate
Yeah.
person, and I guess they moved it up there or something.
Oh, this is the original school right here. Oh, look at that.
The term was of 3 months in the summer of 1901 or 1902. Teacher was Lynn Joseph, a man. The first one. But he isn't on there. There's a woman on there. That's a little later, this picture here, because at first there wasn't so many yet. I imagine that 2 or 3 years after that.
I got my glasses too.
Yeah, they are piling the lumber.
Oh,
Just straight, they made those piles and nice.
and tall.
And they take a plank or a board, lay the end down one wall, drop it, go right where it was. But that's the guy that had the job. Them fellas hoisting that lumber up when he got up high. Oh, gee, green lumber, maybe 2 inch.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was nothing but work.
That wasn't 8 foot length either.
Oh, that was full length, whatever those piles were. That lumber was all in the same lengths, of course, in them piles. Well, sure, 12, 14, 16, whatever it happened to be. Of course, when the pile got bigger, they had a spike sitting in here that they pried them over and passed them up. Gosh.
Oh, here's a little stand. Yeah, 2 horses.
Oh, yeah, there's the horses that pulled them up there. Oh, yes, there's a picture of their horses. That's the barn behind there. I guess, isn't it?
Not a dapple.
Excuse me. No, that's those buildings down on the street. The barn is over about in here somewhere. You know, they built a trestle over the sewer line once so they could cross with their logging trains. And that's it. Way high, you know. That is just, well, a little east north of the mill across the pond on the east side. That's where the railroad came in from the north, you know. You crossed the sewer line, and they wouldn't let them cross. They had to build a trestle over the top. And you know, they used to haul to them little logging cars that had 4 little wheels under it and 1 deck of logs on. I remember they went down this road lots of times through here. All once they had a wreck, and that settled up. They wouldn't allow them to haul anymore with their own cars. They had to load, like Ladysmith or wherever they were, Jump River, load the regular flat cars for the railroad and send them in. Across, regular freight across the road. Before that, the company furnished a conductor, and then they let them go across, you know. But afterward, they wouldn't let them anymore. I remember them little cars rattling down the railroad here. You know, they had their own railroads, of course, up through the country here. And then to start out, they had to cross the sewer line right there, you know, in town. And that was a considerable. Otherwise, here they'd go, I guess they went where they pleased, probably.
Wherever they wanted to.
I don't think anybody would have any objection. They had 3 little engines, 3 little locomotives. Well, one of them wasn't so little. Well, if you want me to, I can read the whole thing, and then you can, as you say, you can clip it out.
Let's see here.
Oh, you can read it too.
Yeah, I'm just going to read through and see here what we've already, you know, put in.
Yeah, we got some of that.
Clark, or Amber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to be
It
Amber.
used to be Amber. That was quite a sighting there at one time, wasn't there?
Oh, they had a mill there, and they had a store and a cheese factory, and could have been a town. I don't know why it wasn't. But when the mill went out, then it settled up. It said somewhere how many thousands of carloads of stuff they shipped out of there during that time.
Let's see, maybe I'll have you just read the whole thing here, actually. Now, I'll just have you read the whole thing.
Okay. Will you tell me when to start?
Okay.
Early life in the town of Hickson recalled. Is that loud enough?
Mm-hmm.
Hickson settler, editor's note. The following account was written by Arno Vater and presented at the noon luncheon of Senior Citizen O, entitled, "It Has Been a Long Way." My grandfather on father's side came from Germany as a baby, and his grandfather on the mother's side came as a young man. He skipped from the army in Germany only to be taken into the Civil War here. He served 4 years without being hurt. They migrated to Plymouth, Wisconsin when it was all woods, cleared their farms and raised their families. They carried supplies from Sheboygan through the woods. I, Arno, was born in Plymouth in 1895. My sister Ruth was 4 years younger, was born there too. My father, Robert Vater, moved to Withee in 1900 when I was 5 years old, having bought 3 80s the year before. I live on one of the original 80s. My brothers and sisters were all born here. They are Alice, Gladys, Carl, and Neil. It was all woods then and no roads closer than 2 miles. We went by logging road to the Miller farm, about 4½ miles north of Withee, northwest of Withee, should say. Land is beautiful timber. Dad bought a small Russell sawmill, a small traction engine, which proved to be too small, so he bought a Russell 25-horse skid engine, which was later sold to the Maplehurst mill. Another stationary engine and boiler was installed. He sought lumber for the settlers, but money was scarce and some saw bills were unpaid. He hauled red oak lumber to Withee for $8 per thousand, it should be. About 1900 and 1902, a schoolhouse was built at the site of the White School. First, a small building was erected and used for about a year. Later, it was used as a woodshed, and a larger building was built. Lumber for the small building was hauled from our place to the Miller farm on Frenchtown Road to Withee and 4 miles north of the schoolhouse because of a sinkhole between our place and the school site, 1/2 mile. Dad having sawed the lumber for the building, the roads came in about 2 years later. Some of the early settlers were Carl Dresdo, 1903, 1 mile west of the school. Gerke's 1/2 mile south of that corner, 1903, end of the road. They didn't go up that hill there, you know, for a long time. John Eppers on the corner, 1 mile from the school. Craig across the corner to the west. On the road 1 mile north of school, Herman Carroll, also end of the road, 1903. 1/2 mile north was shown. That should be 1/2 mile east and 1/2 mile north. Jonas Heminger, no road yet, 1902. 2 miles west and 1/2 mile north, Delmater settled. Also Bill Atkins settled there about 1902. William Wood and family 1901. That's Wallace's folks. They came on a tote road from the Miller corner. Robert Robertson settled on the corner to the north in 1901. The next corner to the south was William Caskin and Sam Munson, just a short distance from the road. 1 mile west from the Miller farm, Louis and Bill Scherf settled on their farms in 1901. The Miller farm was bought by the Millers about 10 years before this. It was a logging company farm and had several hundred acres of cleared land. The Frank Wendell settled across the Black River without a road and sometimes had to carry their supplies across the river. 1 mile north of Wendell's farm was Fred Warren's place, 1½ miles east of the corner, 1/2 mile east of the corner, which is now Clark. Now they walked up the river in the winter through the woods to the Maplehurst Mill, which had a road from Medford. It took 3 years until they got a road to Maplehurst. The Fred Warrens came in from Milwaukee in 1905. What did the people do to make a living? They worked in logging camps, cleared the land, sold logs and wood, bought a few cows. A little later, a mill was started at Clark's, then called Amber. The railroad from Spencer to Duluth was built in 1905. The Munson Bridge was built on the Black River in 1911, finally giving the Wenzels a crossing. I am a charter member of the White School, having a report card from 1902. But, yeah, that's quite an activity through there, you know. They built all them big grades with horses entirely. Took the ground, scraped it up and dumped it in the middle, you know. And they made a big grade this side of the river, too. Gee, that's high.
How long did it take them to build it?
Oh, a couple of years, I guess. I went out once, too. The railroad bridge there. They had a high bridge with a big top on, you know. Tornado threw it in the river that time.
In respect to the land down there, how would you describe where it's at?
What do you mean?
The railroad bridge.
Well,
To who it's next to.
I don't know what they'd call it. The Black River Railroad Bridge up north here. The other one is down south, you know, west of Withee.
Whose farm is that near?
I don't know what they called it. Do you?
Oh, no. It belongs to, well, the county owns it now on this side, and Draki owns it on the other side. Draki's the old Winslow farm.
The land.
Yeah.
They went through his land.
Yeah.
Oh. Uh-huh.
On the west side, it's Draki's now.
What?
Tell me about this Chautauqua.
Oh, yes. Oh, J.B. Rotner. I guess it was Rotner, yes. He was running them. He came every year. People knew him a lot. And he had a pretty nice vaudeville performance. Good actors and everything. People sure went for that.
He brought everybody was in his troupe. I mean, he brought everyone.
Yes, tent, everything. Set it up. And he stayed several days, I guess, biggest part of a week. And it was really good.
Did he sell anything?
No.
No?
No. Yeah, he was known all over the state. J.B. Rotner. Well, they had vaudeville acts of different kinds, and singing and music, whatever they was on their program. I don't know. You might say everything.
Now, was this different than the people that came and gave speeches of some sort in any different subject?
No, not that. Just entertainment, music of different kind, maybe singing or acting. You know, vaudeville, there'd be a whole bunch of them together, a troupe.
Did he charge to get in?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
How much? Do you remember?
I think about 75 cents.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was considered a high-class show. It wasn't cheap stuff.
Couple hours of entertainment?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, some of the stuff will make you sick. But that was real, I think they were actors off the stage, no doubt. Because they had nice costumes and everything, all complete. If I remember right, I believe we had a special piano player along with him yet. Yeah, when the Chautauqua went to town, I bet you didn't find anybody at home.
Of course, that was the only entertainment for the year.
Just about.
Just about, outside of the socials at school or at church or whatever.
The movies, of course, but
Well, not very many people went, did they? From the
not
farm?
too much.
No.
No, kids and the young fellas took their girls and just like, to them. But
Well, I remember that now.
yeah. It would be free ladies.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Get them started. Of course, they see some of it, they don't want to see the rest of it. Seems to me he was a crippled guy, I believe, if I remember right. Walked with a cane and a limp, I think. Oh, it's been so long ago.
That's before my time. I can remember.
Yes, it is.
All I can remember is Havisto wrestling in the mud.
Oh, yeah.
You know Havisto.
Yeah.
Mud wrestling.
That was something.
They'd have a carnival or whatever. What
Yeah,
was
at the carnival,
Yeah.
at the fair, or whatever it happened to
Whatever.
be. Yeah.
They'd have their own wrestler, and of course he was the villain,
Yeah.
and Havisto would be the hero
Oh, yeah.
and wrestle in the mud. They'd have it up in the ring.
Sure.
full
What
of
about
mud,
that deep?
that deep, yeah.
They take butts of it and throw it at each other.
And the people would just go crazy with that.
Yeah.
Although Halberstam was a pretty fair wrestler.
Oh, he was. He and Matson used to be
Matson was another
pretty
one,
good.
right.
That Matson was just like a cat,
Yeah. He was good.
What years was it? Were those?
That would have been in the late 30s, because I can remember the
Yeah.
early 40s. I can remember the wrestling, the mud wrestling.
Yeah, it might be a draw which one would win, those two.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Yeah. The Flying Finn, wasn't that
Yeah,
what they called
that's
themselves?
right.
Havisto?
Yeah.
Matson, he was before Havisto, I think, wasn't he a little
Well, I
bit?
don't know.
Was this in Owen or Withee?
No, they'd have it in Withee.
Yeah,
Havisto would come to Withee.
Oh.
Well, they perform either place.
Where would they
occasionally.
have this in Withee?
What I remember is right in the corner of the park.
Yeah, they'd build a platform there. and
Right where the water
It,
fountain is,
uh,
kind of right in that.
Put, I guess, well, I don't know, they didn't need no ropes for wrestling, did they?
I think they had ropes.
Did they?
As I can remember, they had ropes, yeah.
I think
Because I
so,
can remember
too.
walking, crawling in through the ropes into the ring. And they'd have to have a corner, and they had ropes, 2 ropes or whatever.
Yeah, Matty Matson made a mistake though once.
He did?
He shot deer out of season when he was sheriff. Boy, they give him the works. They caught him. A sheriff doing that yet. He's sheriff for a couple of years. And they were down below in that country. They were pretty handy, And he did. Then he was all caught up though, right there.
That was Ken Mathewson's dad, wasn't it? Ken and Don?
By golly, I don't really
Or
know.
weren't they related? No, that's Matson, that's different.
Well, he got killed in Shanty yet from asphyxiation, didn't he?
Yeah, I guess so.
Something like that, yeah. They had an oil burner in the tent, and this thing was smoking and fixed him.
Yeah.
But I remember Indian being really on the bum and asked for it right out.
Did the bums go in pairs or together rather than going
Well,
singly?
I don't know. I'm sure. I know they used to have signs where it was easy picking,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
somewhat.
somehow,
to
some
tell,
kind of a,
tell where to stop.
yeah. They had their own ethics.
Mhm. But now, late years, you don't see it anymore at all. Well, that used to be about the time when people would ride the freights out to the harvest fields. Well, that was all right. They went out there to work, and if they could bum their way, it didn't cost them anything. And the railroads kind of closed their eyes to that, too.
Yeah,
then,
certain ones did.
because they knew the people wanted them out there.
Didn't do any harm.
No.
Of course, it wasn't the safest way, I suppose, to ride either. Jump on a moving train or jump off a moving train.
But excuse me. Some of those trained men could be mean too.
I guess so.
Kick them off, and that. couple shipped a immigrant car to Canada one time. With a lot of stuff in it, you know, a couple of horses and machinery and stuff. And he carried grub enough to carry him through, because he said they may stop way out in the country, and you know, whether they're going to stop 5 minutes or 2 hours, and you couldn't get off then. And well, he got there anyway, about a week.
Yeah. That wasn't uncommon to ride the freight with your freight.
Yeah.
People that even sold cattle to Milwaukee or Chicago stockyards, they'd ride the freight car with the cattle.
Oh, yeah.
That was quite common practice, or even the potato.
Well, if you had a contract, a freight contract,
yeah.
you could ride the caboose from here. Stevens Point, they'd stick on a passenger car for you. They'd have more of them than already. I rode that several times.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, well, they'd run that freight passenger schedule out so they get there. And that was pretty good. I know here in Withee, they'd load them cars about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock. And then that freight would stop, and the end of it would be way out to the back. You better hurry up and get there. They wouldn't look around for you.
No.
If you didn't get on, it was just too bad. But you were, by rights, the caretaker of that stop on the way.
Right.
But there's very little you could do. If you could find your car, you'd do well. And if you'd get there, maybe they'd pull out for you. I know I walked the top of the train once when it was going like the dickens. So I had to get on or else I'd been left, you know. And they used to try to get cattle go down sometimes. They try and get them up. Mm-hmm. Well, they just about couldn't, you know. But if they stayed down, they were down.
Good.
Mm-hmm. They'd step them all up, you know. Oh, that is awful, shipping them cattle in cars.
They never stopped walking, would they? In the car, the cattle especially.
I don't know.
They always moved, constantly moved.
But you see those cattle unloaded down there, you wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're pulled up and thin, you know, looking. Oh, they'd have a little hay along with them, but that wasn't nothing. I don't wonder that the Crum used to see that he'd be there so they get water and stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. They charge him up for feed and wouldn't give it to him, probably.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yardage or whatever.
He claimed he could take the co-op car here and take it down and make money on it. By doing that, see that they got taken care of properly. Mm-hmm. And, of course, watch his commission merchants, too.
Yeah.
But, of course, you could send the car down there, nobody with it, that's all right. And somebody else will take care of it when it gets there, but you don't know what kind of care they're going to get. Yeah, I used to ride down there a lot. We had sometimes had 2 contracts, and then you could ride the cushions back, you know.
Oh.
Well, but after a while they cut that out. Commission merchant even to give you a nice meal that day. But after a while that was out. That's the only time I did get to Chicago.
Oh.
Of course, I only got to stockyards and exchange building. But those stockyards, that really was something.
Big place.
80 acres of yards. Of course, they're gone now. Land got too expensive. I guess they couldn't hold it.
Regulations, too, with the regulations kind of made it.
No doubt, yeah. If they'd kick on that smell and that, you know,
look at that
wouldn't work.
little packing plant in Chippewa, and what kind of hell they're raising with that.
Did?
The last couple of years, they've been trying to close them down. That's not.
You mean the one that's Altoona?
No, in Chippewa.
Oh, that's so?
There's a little plant there.